I mean, really? Why do nations act the way they do? Why are some best friends and others bitter enemies? It's the big question. And yeah, it seems messy. One minute it's all about cooperation and trade, the next it's about conflict. But there is a logic to it, or at least people have been trying to find one for a long, long time, looking for the patterns hidden just behind the headlines.
Probably the easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think of these theories as different pairs of glasses, or, different lenses for a camera. Put one lens on and you see certain things in sharp focus, like power and conflict. Put on another, and suddenly cooperation and institutions pop out. No single lens gives you the whole picture, but by switching between them, that's when you start to see what's really going on. All right, so let's jump in with the two big ones, the real heavyweights of international relations theory: realism and liberalism. These two have been shaping the debate for decades, and honestly, they could not be more different in how they see the world. So here's the breakdown, side by side. You've got realism, which is all about power. It says countries are primarily driven by their own national interest, and conflict, yeah, that's pretty much always on the table. Then you have liberalism, which is way more optimistic. It focuses on cooperation, on the idea that institutions can bring nations together and that progress is actually possible. It's a fundamental clash in worldview.
So let's put on that realist lens. The first thing you see is what they call anarchy. Now, that doesn't mean chaos in the streets, it just means there's no world government, no global police force, no 911 to call if you get into trouble. So, if you're a country, what's your top priority? Survival. And how do you survive? By getting powerful. The Cold War is the textbook example of this, right? The US and the Soviet Union just kept building up more and more weapons, not because they necessarily wanted to fight, but because in a realist world, you can't risk being the weaker one.
Okay, now let's swap that lens for the liberal one. The view changes completely. Liberals look at the world and say, hold on, it's not all doom and gloom. They agree there's no world government, but they argue that we've built things, like the UN or the World Trade Organization, to help us cooperate and avoid the worst outcomes. I mean, look at the European Union. We're talking about countries that fought devastating wars against each other, now so deeply connected through trade and law that another war between them is basically unthinkable. That's liberalism in action.
But wait a minute. What if the game isn't just about power or money? What if the most powerful forces in the world are actually ideas? This is where our next major lens comes in, and it's called constructivism.
This quote, this is a bombshell. Alexander Wendt basically looked at the realist's core idea of anarchy and said, you've got it all wrong. He argued that anarchy isn't some fixed physical law of nature. It's a social construct. It means what we believe it means. 5 friends on a desert island could form a brutal death match or a cooperative society. The anarchy is the same, but their ideas about each other change everything. That's the core of constructivism.
So, for a constructivist, the world isn't set in stone. Our reality is built out of shared ideas, norms, and identities. A country's national interest isn't just about stockpiling weapons, it's shaped by who they think they are. Think about it, the idea of human rights didn't exist in the same way a few hundred years ago. Now it's a powerful norm that can actually change how countries treat their citizens and each other. That's not because of guns or money, it's because an idea became powerful.
Marxism, for example, cuts through the talk of power and ideas and just asks, follow the money. Who's getting rich from the global system and who's getting left behind? Then you've got feminism, which points out that international politics has been a man's world for, well, forever. It asks, how does gender affect everything from who goes to war to who sits at the peace table? And post-colonialism demands that we look at history, at the long shadow of empire, and ask the really tough question, whose story are we telling and whose have we completely ignored?
Whew. Okay, so we've tried on a few different lenses, right? We've seen the world through the eyes of power, cooperation, ideas, and inequality. The big question now is, how do we make sense of it all? Which lens should we be using today?
And that's the question everyone always asks. Okay, so which one is the right one? It's totally natural to want a single correct answer, but here's the thing, that might be the wrong question to ask. The real way to think about this is not as a competition, but as building a toolkit. Each lens is a different tool for a different job. You see a major power rivalry heating up, grab your realist hammer. You need to understand a complex international treaty, you're going to need your liberal screwdriver. You're trying to figure out why a global attitude about something is shifting, that's a job for the constructivist wrench. And if you want to find the hidden cracks in the system, you absolutely need those critical lenses.
And this all brings us to one last really big thought. Look at the challenges we face today.
We're talking global pandemics, climate change that affects everyone, cyber attacks that ignore borders. Do these old lenses really work for these new problems? Do they fit? Or, as we try to navigate this incredibly complex future, is it time for us to invent a whole new lens altogether? Something to think about.